Hi, in this video I am going to talk about land utilization for pastoral and horticultural purposes. So for the pastoral purposes, land is used for the grazing or keeping of livestock. So the pastoral land is the land which is used for keeping or grazing of livestock, which include dairy farming or raising the beef cattle or raising the sheep for wool, etc. So it includes areas or the natural vegetations of savannas or forests which is used for grazing, or it include land which cannot be used for the crop land, can be used for the grazing area, or the land can be developed exclusively for the grazing. It also include the agricultural land or the arable land, which can be used alternatively for the crop land as well as for the grazing, so which is a combination of the agricultural like for the crop production as well as for the livestock production. So there are different categories of the pastoral land. One is the intensive farming, other is the extensive farming. As like any type of intensive farming, in the intensive farming we are using a very small land area, but we use the high labor, high investment as well as machineries to get maximum productivity from the small area of land. So it is very efficient in terms of cost effectiveness as well as the efficiency of the whole system. uh, for getting large returns from a small area, or larger production from a small area, we need to use higher amounts of fertilizers for the growth of plants, and we will use animal supplements for the animals. So intensive pastoral land, we will be using like intensive techniques, like we will use more and more fertilizers, so the grass will be grow, so the grass will be eaten by the livestock, and which will enhance the growth of this animals, and we also supplements hormones and everything for the animals so that its growth will be faster. And the environmental impact of this intensive farming is high. At the same time, the profit from the intensive farming is also high, and it require only very small area. But in case of extensive farming, the farm is very large, and we are using very little labor and very little capital investment, so the per unit area production will be less and yield is less, but its impact on the environment will be also less. So depending on the whether we are using it for intensive farming or the extensive farming, the properties of the soil as well as the impact on the soil will be different. So what are the characteristics of a pastoral land? Not all type of land will be utilized as the pastoral land. So what type of land area will be using as the pastoral land? First distinguishing factor is called the mollisol land. The land which is the soil which is characterized by semi-arid and semi-humid areas. Those type of areas is not very suitable for the annual plantation or crop production, which can be actually used for this grazing. Then the steep slopes, the slope area, the having the agricultural practices in a very slope area, steeps, is difficult because the machineries won't go, the tillage is difficult, the growing plants, uniformly growing plants is difficult, and the like when we are actually using tillage in the slope areas, it will increase the erosion. And and it is also difficult to harvest the plant products from the slope area. So but this slope area can be used for the grazing. Or the poor soil nutrition, which is also good for growing grass. It do not require huge amount of nutrients in the soil. So or the extreme climate, or the windy regions, so these all areas are not really suitable for the agriculture, so this can be utilized for the grazing. Molly soil, it's a type of soil which has semi-arid and semi-humid, which is present in the semi-arid and semi-humid areas. It is typically under the grassland cover, most commonly found in mid altitude. They are deep, high organic matter is present, nutrient enriched, and very much suitable for the grazing and keeping the grassland. The advantages of using a land for grazing is like it increase the soil organic matter with the grass present in it, and it also due to the animal waste and which will be deposited in the same area. It improve the water infiltration and water quality. It is a synergy between the plant growth as well as the animal growth, so it's beneficial in the ecological terms. It increases long-term productivity and efficiency of a region. It has strong positive production outcome for the crop growth after it is using as a pasturage, because when this is used for grazing, it will enhance the soil. So if the grazing is followed by the crop production, there will be an increase in the productivity. But there is also some impact of using land for this grazing and the keeping the livestock, which include uh, it change the soil pore structure and function, because these animals are walking throughout the places. It will actually lead to the compaction, not the huge compactions, but micro compactions in the land. So which change the pore structure and the function of the soil. It accelerates the soil erosion in some areas. The gazing and the redistribution of this animals may leads to the nutrient removal, and it also causes the greenhouse gas emission, which is a major problem. uh, then another problem is that when we are using an area for intensive farming, we will be applying the fertilizers for the plant growth, which will be used for the animals. So this intensive farming practices will actually lead to the leaching of these nutrients into the nearby water bodies, and it may cause the eutrophication. So that's about the pastoral land. Next is about horticultural land. So horticulture is refers to the cultivation of garden plants within a protected enclosure. So if you are doing the cultivation in a very protected environment, it is called the horticulture. It need sorry, need not be in a greenhouse or in a like covered area. It can be anywhere. It can be a garden for flowers, maybe for fruits, for vegetables, or medicine or ornamental purposes. So if we are cultivating the plant in a very small protected area, that is called horticulture area. So it have different purposes, and it is a very intensive farming practices, because we are using science and technology for the production and processing and merchandising. And the horticulture is not only a science, it's also an art of producing plants. And there are different, horticulture is a very wide umbrella. It has several subfields, which include the pomology, which is the cultivation of fruit crops, or oriculture, which is the cultivation of vegetables, or we have the floriculture for the production of flower. Then plantation crops like the coconut, rubber, and coffee, if we are cultivating it in a very protected area, it is called it's a part of horticulture. Maybe used for the spice production like pepper and cardamom, or medicinal or aromatic plants can be cultivated. Plant propagation is a part of this horticulture. And post harvesting technology, like how we are handling the crops, grading it, packaging, storage, processing, value addition, marketing, etc., everything come under the horticulture. So it's a very wide term. The features of the horticulture is that it is a very intensive farming practices. We are using huge amount of capital, labor, and technology. It is not the huge amount, because if you are considering it for the unit area investment will be more in a horticulture than in an open field. So very small area, we are investing more. We are adding more fertilizers than in a field. So the labor per unit area will be high, and technology is also used for this horticulture. And for the horticulture, the skilled labor is used for propagation, training, and harvesting. Then production per unit area is also high when compared to the field. Then products are rich source of vitamins and minerals and alkaloids. There is an aesthetic gratification for doing this type of gardening. Do not misunderstand that the gardening in the horticulture is not only refers to the flowering plants, it's also applicable for the fruits, spices, medicines, etc. Then the thing we are interested in, the soil in the horticulture. So how the soil in the horticulture, or the properties of the soil in the horticulture affect the growth of these plants. So horticultural soil, or the horticultural substrate, is the life environment of plant roots, and it is actually isolated from the plant parent growth. And different types of soils can be used in horticulture. The one type is urinary substrate, which contain organic minerals, and artificial one can be used. So it has more or less uniform composition. Uh, then we have the multi-component substrate, which is actually made for the composition of different things like leaves, sod, compost, garden soil, etc. They are mixed to get the multi-component soil. Or we have the standard soil that can be enriched by minerals and everything to get a better property. So we have urinary soils, multi-composite soil, and standard soil. And the soil characteristics can be viewed in different categories, like the chemical properties, like its nutrient composition, nutrient cycling, water relations, and cation exchange capacity. The cation exchange capacity is actually very much important in determining the pH value of the soil. And the physical properties like structure, texture, aggregate stability, and water relations. And finally, the biological properties of this soil include the soil microorganism, microbial biomass, and biodiversity. So these all properties will vary depending on the type of soil and type of plant we are using for cultivation. So how to improve organic matter in a soil? Because the horticulture is an intensive farming technique, so we need so much amount of nutrients in the soil and so much amount of organic components in the soil. And the most of times these days, the people's using uh, this horticulture for the organic farming. So how to improve the organic content of a horticultural soil? So there are different methods. One is using compost and manures, which has a source of nutrients as well as it is act as a essential supply of microbial population and organic matter. It improves the chemical, physical, and biological property of soil, but excessive addition of these organic components will also affect the soil negatively. And next method is using the crops, especially the leguminous plants, which is having an ability for symbiotic nitrogen fixation, which also improve the soil organic matter and other properties of the soil. Then what are the impact of horticulture on the soil health? One is the monocropping. If you are using same crops again and again in an area, whether it is a farming practice, whether it is a pastoral land, whether it is a horticultural land, it will negatively affect the soil. It depletes soil nutrients, reduce organic matter, and cause significant erosion. So monoculture is not good. So we need to like rotate the plants or using different plants at the same time. So things like that should be done. If you are using the monoculture for the long time, the dependency on the fertilizers and the pesticides will be high. So we need to add more and more fertilizers and more and pesticides, which will be costly, as well as it will affect the environment negatively. It also alter the microbial biodiversity, and it may decrease the beneficial microorganisms in the soil if you are using monocropping. Then the related term is the use of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides that reduce the soil microbial diversity and to may cause the acidification, building up of salt in the soil, heavy metals contamination, and accumulation of nitrates. So which is also not good. Then next is the use of pesticides. If you are using higher amount of pesticides, it will accumulate the soil, which may lead to the toxicity to humans and as well as for the environment. It also cause negative effects in the beneficial organisms in the soil. And another is the effect of tillage, soil compaction, and erosion. So if you are using the same land for tillage again and again, which cause so many changes, structural changes as well as the chemical and biological changes in the soil, which include poor water absorption and poor aeration, then stunted root growth in plants and small yield, then changes in the structure and fertility of agricultural soil, and finally tillage induced CO2 emission because of the degradation of the organic matter within the soil, which causes the increase in the carbon dioxide level in the environment. So that's all about it. Thank you.